We'll call this meeting to order, April 5th, 2017 at 6:01. We'll have the prayer. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory. Amen. Are there any pecuniary and disclosures? Anybody claiming for pecuniary? Having seen none, we'll move on to, we're going to put the scouts, if the leaders could come up, we will put you guys right on the start.
Good evening, Mayor Johnson and members of Council. We are from the 1st Covenant Scouting Group, and we would like to ask the Council permission to adopt a Veterans Memorial Park.
So the 1st Covenant Scouting Group is in the process of applying for a grant. It's called Adopt a Park, and it's a National Scouting Canada grant. They only give 20 across Canada. It's a $500 to $800 grant, and the idea is that it promotes stewardship. The Scouters learn about stewardship, community service, and they also get an opportunity to work with our sponsor, which is also the park sponsor, the Civitan Club. So that's why we're interested in applying for the grant.
That's excellent. Absolutely amazing. Are there any questions of council to the Scout leaders?
We have a short presentation we like to
you
show.
carry on.
Okay.
So I'll go through a bit of we've got 3 projects that are sort of our ideas. Our first project idea is a butterfly and pollinator garden. It'll actually be a few gardens. We're looking at, native species. Not bringing anything in that's going to take over and that sort of thing. We're very, trying to be very aware of that. Flowers, low-lying plants, native species. We're looking at putting in a bench so that people can sit and enjoy, the view down at the park and enjoy the flowers and that we're going to be planting. We're also thinking about putting in informational installments. So signage or even, a place for brochures where people can read up on native pollinators and native plant species and, other things that are going on in the park, that sort of thing. And like I said, focusing on drawing in native pollinators because, there's a lot of news on them lately and, they're not doing so great. So it's something we're trying to, show the kids and, instill in them to look out for our native species. So this is just a, sort of an approximate placement of where we'd like to put these gardens. So a bench just up on that little outcropping as you go from the marina up into the main part of the park, and then small gardens in between the trees that are planted down there, and then the potential for the large square gardens up on the other side of the path, depending on exactly where property lines and that lie. So our second project is duck boxes. This is a favorite of mine. This is something that when I was in school I did projects on. So we're looking at building, installing, and maintaining these duck boxes. So cleaning them out in the winter, doing counts to see how many have been used, that sort of thing, what's using them. They won't attract geese, because I know that's a bit of a concern down at the beach, particularly, you know. And then, again, we're looking at putting in informational installments, you know, learning opportunities for the youth, not just in Scouts, but in the community as well. And then that's, again, approximate placements just on that edge. We're aware that depending on where we're putting them, we have to deal with the M&R. So we're looking at, you know, up away from where we don't necessarily need those M&R permissions. And then, so our third idea is recycling garbage receptacles, where they're encouraging people to, you know, use them and why we want them to use them. One of our youth brought up the point that, you know, the garbage attracts the seagulls. The seagulls leave a mess and it's gross. So, you know, it's that sort of thing, and there's a couple of signs and that we'd like to put up with that as well, and yeah, just make it fun and encourage people to take care of their community and their park. So again, there's approximate placements for a couple. We might, you know, depending on what approvals we get and what we get for the grant and that, put more in throughout that trail up to the main part of the park. Yeah, so.
We hope that you will consider our request to adopt the Veterans Memorial Park. Thank you for listening to our presentation.
And thank you. Are there any councillors that have any comments that they would like to bring forward? Councillor McLaughlin.
I was just thinking as you were talking about the duck boxes, and I was thinking about the walking trail that's down at the marsh. If
Me
that, if you had thought about that, or
Yeah, that is definitely another option we were thinking about, and that, you know, we're, like I said, duck boxes is one of my favorite things. It's something I did when I was a youth in Scouts. We went and, you know, cleaned the duck boxes and did our counts, and so yeah, that's another option that we're definitely thinking about.
Thank you. Reeve Miller.
Yeah, I'd like to commend you on this idea. I really like the idea. I really like the trash cans. Are you going to give us that kind of color in them? It would be nice. It's kind of bright and flashy. But I think it's a great thing for the area and for the park, and I thank you for bringing it forward, and I will certainly support it. I have one quick question. Maybe you've answered it and I missed it. How big is the Boy Scouts in Compton here, or in the area? How many members? Scouts.
Well, we call it the Scouting Group, but it's Scouts, Cubs, and Beavers, and I think there's approximately 34 participants at present time.
Nice. Thank you.
I definitely agree with Reeve Miller that it's quite a surprise, but it's such a great surprise to have community involvement in this park. Excuse me. And again, as Councillor McLaughlin said, we have the other walking trails that we're really looking at moving forward with, making that a benefit to the community, if you will. So thank you for coming, and I see no problem. I look around the room, and I would imagine that in principle you have the answer yes, and thank you, and we'll make that official at our next meeting.
So just to clarify, you're okay if we go ahead with any of the three projects, or even possibly all three?
Oh, yes, I would have to say yes. We're quite good with that, yes.
Okay, we've applied for yet another grant, which is a BEAN grant. I can't remember what it stands for. It's biodiversity, basically, and we'll know on Friday. But that would be specific to the duck boxes, which maybe would cover that and allow us to build extra down on the walking trail. So there's potentially two grants cooking. So we may not be able to confirm exactly which project will take the lead, but we'll certainly keep you up to date on if we get the grants, and then what we can go forward with.
And if you need a letter of support from me when you apply for the grant, by all means, I will provide that on our letterhead.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that.
Okay. Yes.
Our new manager of community services, Jordan, is starting on Monday. So what we'll do is make sure that you guys can synergize. In addition, we'll have a parks summer student. So that's somebody that could work very closely with you. And then depending on your funding, if these sound like three very worthwhile initiatives, so staff can see how we can assist. And as the mayor said, we'll formalize this next meeting. At the same time, just for council's information, the agreement for the Cenotaph project at the same park will be coming forward, the final agreement. So some good things happening at that park this year. So thanks for coming.
Much. That's great news.
Thank you very much. I'll ask, would John Cull come forward? He's representing the Civitan, which is the corporate sponsor for the group.
Blue is good. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here representing, off the cuff, I didn't know I was speaking, but anyway, the Civitan Club, because I'm the liaison person between the Scouts and the club. And in discussions with the Scout movement over the past couple of weeks, we are looking to move forward with some ideas in the park with the permission of the region, seeing as it's under your ownership. A couple of the items that have been discussed over the last few years is planting trees in memory of deceased members of the club. My personal preference is hard redwood maple. Get that red color in the fall. And then you have sugar maples. If times get tough, you can tap the trees. That was one of the issues. That is on the agenda to be done this year, providing that the weather is suitable, like we don't get a drought or whatnot, with the Scouts assisting in the learning of planting mature trees, because these trees will be 8-10 feet tall. Just as an example, we planted one for George Hooper there just between the flagpole and the lake 2 years ago, and it's actually doing quite well. Same idea, only we'll place them throughout the park. The trees this winter have taken a hit in the park this year, so they're all aging, so we need to look to the future and plant new growth, and then hopefully continue on every year with a tree or two until we have a young crop in the park. That's one item. Second item was to brush out the undergrowth between the park and the lake. We've had some comments from tourists that go through that they can't see the lake, which is true, they can't. The undergrowth is overgrown, and we've discussed it in other years, but we have to kind of timeline the help, which is all volunteer, to actual working, and then put it together with weather and time schedule. So it is on the agenda to get done. We'll just have to get someday and do it. And then we have the spring cleanup for the park, which is an annual thing. The brush that's on the ground now, my plan is to chip that brush, and we can use the chips then for the flower beds and let it ferment or whatever, and use it on the trees, rather than go to all the work to take it to the dump. Kind of recycling, as you would put it. So the new trees and the underbrush, and then we're going to assist the Scouts in their roles, and we'll see where it goes from there.
Thank you very much, John. In the past, when there was large projects like that taking place, I believe the municipality offered the use of our trucks to pick up the refuse. So if you weren't chipping the brush and whatever, if you decide not to chip the brush down towards the lake where you can't see the lake there now, then I'm sure that we could, council probably give you permission to have our workforce come with a truck or two and aid in that, and maybe some help too.
Yeah, my personal opinion is to chip it, simply for the simple reason that if we blow the chips back on that slope, it will cut down on the regrowth.
That's right. Yeah.
And it saves a lot of. It's quicker to cut it and chip it than it is to cut it and load it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it just speeds up the whole process.
Yeah.
and I have use of a chipper. I may have to con somebody into paying for the gas, but we can work that out. But other than that, no, we do have plans. Oh, one other issue is the playground equipment that has been sitting in storage for the last X number of years. That has also been discussed, erecting it in the park. So as to location, we haven't worked that out. And when we get more details as to closer to having that, the Civitan have invested money in that, and it just got sandbagged over the years, and it needs to be completed. So that is one of the topics. There's two of the topics that are mandated to be done this year, the trees and the playground equipment. So,
Okay.
And with the scouts coming on board to actually want to provide labor, they can actually pick up the nuts and bolts that we can't bend down to. So it's useful for both. So once we get the details, as far as the tree planting and the other details, if there's something that's major, I'll send you off an email. If it's minor or that we can do it without any interruptions to anybody's services, then we just might go ahead and do it.
Okay, and again, we have a liaison that's starting on Monday, and he'll be your contact point through, to start with, through Robert and then to him, and that's great. Now, any councillors have any questions? Councillor McLaughlin?
It just comes, I think that the municipality have a chipper, do they not?
Yes, we do.
And I kind of wonder if maybe with some help from the Civitan Club, that the roads crew or public works maybe should be the ones that do the chipping and remove the brush. I'm thinking more for safety reasons than any other reason. As well, I think it's our property, is it not?
Well, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So I just feel that maybe, you know, if I haven't seen it, I don't know how major a job it is, but if it's a big job,
We won't get it done before lunch.
well, then I think the more help, the better, and I think that maybe we could coordinate with the road superintendent.
By all means, that was what I was meaning too. Just if you need help, just we will try and.
The only thing I look at it is it tends to be more of a community park if the community do it,
That's right.
as opposed to getting in paid services. Because paid services, they're not doing something else that possibly could be done. Now, if it's major and we need assistance or heavy equipment, then that's a different story. But if it's just minor with chipping small brush, yes, there's a risk. There's a risk when you walk out to the mailbox to get the mail. So a little bit of common sense comes into play.
Right. Yes, Councillor McLaughlin.
Just to argue that point, though, we also have to be very proactive on our insurance as well. So maybe we'll leave it with Robert, and Robert can decide what the best is.
And we'll work with John as the liaison. Thank you very much. Any other questions for John? All right. So are we going to give him the go-ahead, the same as the Scouts in principle, and make it official at the next meeting? All those in favor? Thanks, John.
Thank you very much.
All right, we move on to number 4, Robert.
This is a public meeting to discuss a zoning bylaw for 1910 Grant Settlement Road. If any person or public body does not make an oral submission at the public meeting or make written submissions to the township before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision to the Ontario Municipal Board. The person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Municipal Board unless, in the opinion of the board, there are reasonable grounds to do so. The property is legally described as part of Lot 1, Concession 9, Northern Division, Geographic Township of Ross, and is located at 1910 Grant Settlement Road. The purpose of the amendment is to rezone approximately 6.56 hectares of a vacant 20.2 hectare rural property to permit the severance of vacant waterfront lots for future residential purposes that have private road frontage and access to Grant Settlement Road. The effect of the amendment is to rezone approximately 1.56 hectares of the land from rural RU and environmental production EP to limited service residential LSR for 3 new lots proposed by the applications for consent to sever. Notice of the public meeting was provided by regular mail and posted. In terms of comments, the planning report had favorable comments. There were no concerns from municipal departments or public bodies, and no comments were received from the public. Under Section 34 of the Planning Act, if council decides to refuse an application or refuses or neglects to make a decision on an application within 120 days, the applicant or the minister may appeal to the Ontario Municipal Board by filing an appeal with the clerk. Under Section 3419, not later than 20 days after giving notice of passing of the bylaw, the applicant, any person or public body who made oral submission at the public meeting or made written submission to council before the bylaw was passed, or the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, may appeal to the Ontario Municipal Board by filing an appeal with the clerk. So at this time, Mr. Mayor, if you'd like to ask if there's anybody that wishes to speak on this item.
Yes, is there anybody from the public present that would like to speak on this matter? Seeing none, are there any councillors that would like to ask a question on this matter? Seeing Councillor McLaughlin.
Well, I'm kind of, I guess, vague on, because it used to be we would know who the property owner was.
Doug?
I didn't check it. I mean, I guess I could have drove and found out, but being...
Yeah, Doug will bring you up to speed on that.
The property owner on this one is Willie Bice. So that's on it. If you have any other questions, I'm here to answer them.
Is that part of the Log and Lantern? Is that where this is? Or?
It's down in that area, yes. It's a piece of property that they used to have, I think, that they used for a little bit of a maybe trailer park area at one time.
Okay. Yep.
And so now Willie's wanting to go a different direction.
I'm just thinking that because I liked whenever I had a map to know where it was.
We can definitely add a map to the next ones.
Yeah, that's all I'm asking is the map and if, so you get clarification of whose property, because I was kind of a little leery on whose property it was.
Okay. You know, now, Darrell, you know who the second property is, eh?
I'm not, is that?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
That's your brother's.
Okay. No, I wasn't sure. Actually, when I read it, I thought it was the property across the road, up a little piece, because there's something about coming there. No, you can finish this one, but before you go to the next one, I'll be declaring public or pecuniary interest on it.
The public meeting for a zoning bylaw for 2262 Queensline Road. If any person or public body does not make an oral submission at the public meeting or make written submissions to the township before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of council to the Ontario Municipal Board. The person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the OMB unless, in the opinion of the board, there are reasonable grounds to do so. The property is legally described as part of Lot 18, Concession 7, Geographic Township of Ross, and is located at 2262 Queensline Road. The purpose of the amendment is to rezone the 4.8 hectare severed lot to reduce the minimum required farm building separation to a lot line from 60 meters to 23 meters for the existing farm buildings. The effect is to rezone the severed lot from Agriculture A to Agriculture Exception 17, AE 17. Second, the retained lands, being approximately 33.6 hectares in area, are proposed to be zoned to prohibit residential use. The effect is to rezone the retained lot from Agriculture A to Agriculture Exception 16, AE 16. Notice of public meeting was provided by regular mail and posted. The planning report had favorable comments, and no comments were received, no concerns from municipal departments, and none were received from public bodies or the public. Under Section 34, if Council decides to refuse an application or refuses or neglects to make a decision on an application within 120 days, the applicant or Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing may appeal to the Ontario Municipal Board by filing an appeal. Under Section 3419, not later than 20 days after giving the notice of passage, the applicant, any person or public body who made oral submission at the public meeting or made a written submission to Council before the bylaw was passed, or the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, may appeal to the OMB by filing an appeal with the clerk. At this time, Mr. Mayor, I'd seek if anybody wishes to speak on this matter.
Anybody present wish to speak on this subject? Seeing none, any questions from the council? Maybe Doug, we got just a quick overview.
Yes, so this is a piece of property that Dwayne McLaughlin owns, and the setback, he's doing a severance on that property, and the setback to the barn was too close. So therefore, that's why the zoning amendment was required.
Okay, thank you very much. All right. No more questions. We're moving on.
Our third public meeting is regarding the tax-supported budget, both operating and capital. Pursuant to Section 290 of the Municipal Act 2001, the Township shall prepare and adopt a budget, including estimates of all sums required during the year for the purposes of the municipality. Notice of the public meeting was provided by newspaper advertisement and the website. Special meetings were held on March 22nd and 29 for corporate services to review the draft capital and operating items. 5 written comments were received, 3 from Donald Deere regarding Muskrat Lake and previous expenditures for Grant Settlement Road, staffing, cost reduction, and the website project, and funding to the Muskrat Watershed Council. 1 was received from Gary Younghusband suggesting the potential closure of fire stations, and 1 from Brian Didburner objecting to costs associated with an appeal to the Ministry's upcoming decision on official plan number 11. At this time, Mr. Mayor, I'd recommend seeking if anybody wishes to speak on the tax-supported budget.
I ask from the public if anybody wants to speak on the, or make comments on the budget proposals. Having seen none, we will move forward.
Should just note that on the standing committee, there's a final review of the revenue and how we finance the operating capital items, and the final bylaw will be considered on April 19th. And just take the opportunity to note that there will be a second public meeting to receive comments on the user pay budget, which is the water and sewer items, on May 3rd.
Thank you, Robert. Number 5, councillor announcements, starting with Councillor McLaughlin. Councillor announcements.
I have none at this moment.
Councillor Olmsted.
Do you want me to wait till the end to just give the update on junior, on where we're going with junior? I imagine there might be some discussion with this, or I can give it now. Up to you guys.
Sure, give it now.
Okay. Well, I'll give you an update as to the much rumored subject that a junior B hockey team is coming to Cobden. I can tell you that most of the rumors are true. There's been ongoing negotiations with a team that's coming to Cobden, hopefully coming to Cobden. The structure of it is it's the owner of the Pembroke Junior A Lumber Kings, Dale McTavish. He has purchased the Prescott Flyers. So it's a holistic approach to hockey that junior teams take now, in that they want most teams to have a 3-pronged approach with junior A, junior B, and U18, and players would go through all 3 systems more or less. So Essentially, no players from the Prescott team would be coming to Cobden, but there'd be basically there's 22 cards more or less that come with the team and positions to be filled. From a hockey standpoint, lots of opportunities. As I say, there's 22 roster spots to be filled. A lot of that, there's a push on having local players involved, of course. We think it'll benefit all levels of hockey throughout the region, as the District 5 right now has teams at the lower end for junior hockey. Teams at the lower end of District 5, but no teams in the middle or upper end. So this would be the kind of the center point, or the central team. We think it's probably good for the other local junior teams as well, that there'll be a bit of a valley rivalry with Renfrew and Arnprior, so we know with proximity it's probably good for local teams. The team will be looking for partners with respect to businesses, sponsorships, advertising, minor hockey, volunteer groups. Lots of activity will be going on with respect to 50-50s, and we're estimating 300 to 400 people coming to Cobden on a Saturday night. The games right now, as far as the arena standpoint, they're looking at hosting games on Saturday nights. They're looking at inclusive things within the arena, like a lounge, and they're looking at applying for LCBO on an ongoing basis to be able to support that upstairs in the hall. With that comes a lot of other opportunities as well to rent out the hall on non-game nights or summertime. We're looking at a full-time license. And as far as the arena goes, we think it'll really benefit not only Cobden, but the entire Whitewater region, as there will be a very small amount of ice allocation taken away from, of course, Saturday nights. We think that'll flow to other arenas in Whitewater region. There is a significant amount of ice that is actually cancelled on Saturday nights. So this will solve a lot of that issue. There's to be 25, I think it's 25 or 26 home games, and they're locked in. You cannot move a junior game. There's additional sales for the arena as well. So the junior team looking at some daytime ice that's not currently used. So after school or around dinner time, the team would practice. They'd be paying an incremental rate versus minor hockey. So again, you're looking at additional revenue for the arena. It's about a 30% increase in rates versus minor hockey. And as I say, other revenue streams like shared profits of the lounge and some other opportunities for the arena as well, like renting out sharpening rooms and that kind of thing. There is a CDRA meeting, a Cobden District Rec meeting on, I think, in about 25 minutes, and they're going through some of the details as well to figure it out, and we hope to release details in about 2 to 3 weeks.
Thank you very much, Chris. Appreciate that. This, I think, will be a great thing for Whitewater region. It's great to see a future for our arenas. It really is. We've been banging our head against the wall for years trying to figure out how to keep all these facilities working forward, and this is just a great gift from heaven, this one, to help. So thank you very much for your work on this. Thank you very much. Yes?
Just to note that staff will do an accompanying report at the next meeting, just in terms of as the owner of the facility and any part that we have to play in that. So a report will be on the next meeting agenda, and we'll have some information after the association's meeting tonight. And we'll also have Jordan on the team, which will be helpful.
Any other questions for Chris at this time? Seeing none, we'll move on. And Will, I believe you're up. What's that? Oh, they go the other side of the table, they never have anything. You guys have any announcements? No, I didn't think so. We're moving on. Thanks, though, Daryl. Now, just a comment. Now, are you going through that page by page, or just putting it there to look important?
That's just there if I need to answer any questions.
Perfect. All right. Clear your throat, have a drink of water, and you're on.